Picture this for a second. What if I told you that right now, as you're watching this, someone has already cracked the code to infinite energy? Not in some lab buried under a mountain, not in a billion-dollar facility owned by tech giants, but in a modest workshop in Zimbabwe, where one inventor just shattered everything we thought we knew about power itself. I know what you're thinking. Here we go again, another perpetual motion claim, right? Wrong. This time, witnesses watched it happen. Scientists stood there, jaws on the floor, as a basketball-sized metal sphere lit up an entire building without being plugged into anything. No wires, no fuel, no solar panels. Just a quietly humming orb that somehow pulls energy straight out of thin air. And the craziest part? It never stops. Now, before you click away thinking this is some conspiracy theory nonsense, stick with me. Because what happened next is where things get really wild. The inventor, a soft-spoken engineer named Maxwell Chikumbutso, didn't just demonstrate this device once, he ran it for 36 hours straight, powering buses, charging phones from across the room, and keeping medical equipment running without a single connection. Then he looked at the stunned crowd and said something that sent chills down everyone's spine. He said, "This isn't electricity as we know it. This is creation energy." Let that sink in. Creation energy. Not generated, not harvested. Created. From nothing. Or rather, from something that's everywhere but we've never been able to touch until now. You see, for decades, physicists have whispered about something called the quantum vacuum. Sounds fancy, right? But here's what it really means. Even in completely empty space, where there's supposedly nothing, energy is constantly popping in and out of existence. Tiny fluctuations happening billions of times per second in every cubic inch of the universe. Scientists knew it was there. They could measure it. But nobody, and I mean nobody, thought we could actually use it. Until Maxwell built his sphere. He calls it the core, and honestly, that name doesn't even do it justice. Because this thing isn't just generating power. According to the engineers who examined it, it's somehow stabilizing those quantum fluctuations I mentioned and turning that chaos into perfectly usable electricity. Imagine catching lightning in a bottle. Except the lightning never stops striking and the bottle never fills up. The demonstration itself was something out of a science fiction movie. Picture a room full of skeptical experts, the kind of people who've spent their whole careers studying energy. The lights go out. Complete darkness. Then Maxwell places this glowing blue sphere on a table, and suddenly everything springs back to life. Not just the lights. Every device, every screen, every piece of equipment starts working again. But here's the kicker. Nothing was connected to the sphere. It was just sitting there, humming quietly, somehow beaming power through the air to everything around it. One witness, a physicist from Germany, described it like watching someone casually break the laws of physics while sipping coffee. Another said it felt like being present when humanity discovered fire. Except this time, the fire doesn't need wood, doesn't produce smoke, and burns forever. Now you might be wondering how something like this is even possible. Maxwell explained it using terms that made even seasoned scientists scratch their heads. Magnetic resonance meeting gravitational fields. Quantum tunneling creating feedback loops. Nanomaterials arranged in patterns that shouldn't exist. But here's the simple version. You know how a magnet can move things without touching them? Well, imagine that, but instead of moving objects, it's moving energy from a dimension we can't see into one we can use. I know. It sounds absolutely insane, and maybe it is. But then again, so did the idea of flying metal tubes carrying hundreds of people across oceans. So did the concept of talking to someone on the other side of the planet through a piece of glass in your pocket. Every breakthrough sounds impossible until suddenly it isn't. What really gets me, though, isn't just the technology. It's what Maxwell said when billionaire investors came knocking, checkbooks in hand, ready to buy exclusive rights. He turned them all down. Every single one. His exact words? "This isn't for sale. This is for humanity." Think about what that means. In a world where every innovation gets locked behind patents, where breakthrough technologies disappear into corporate vaults, this guy is saying no. He's saying energy should be free. Not cheap. Free. Forever. And that's where things get interesting. Because if this device really works the way Maxwell claims, we're not just talking about lower electricity bills. We're talking about the complete collapse of the entire global energy industry. No more power plants. No more gas stations. No more monthly bills that drain your bank account. Your car would run forever. Your phone would never die. Your house would power itself until the sun burns out. Can you imagine living in that world? Wake up tomorrow and never worry about charging anything again. Drive across the country without stopping for gas. Run your air conditioning all summer without guilt or cost. It sounds like paradise, doesn't it? But here's where the plot thickens. Not everyone wants that paradise to exist. Think about it. The global energy market is worth trillions. Entire nations built their economies on oil. Massive corporations exist solely to sell you power. What happens to them when power becomes free? What happens to the politicians they fund? What happens to the wars fought over resources that suddenly don't matter anymore? Maxwell knows this. That's why he's not just releasing the technology. He's being strategic. Instead of selling to the highest bidder, he's partnering with local universities in Africa. He's teaching young engineers how to build these devices themselves. He's creating what he calls energy freedom hubs, where regular people can learn to make their own power sources. His vision is breathtaking when you really think about it. Imagine remote villages that have never seen electricity suddenly lighting up overnight. Hospitals in war zones that never lose power. Disaster areas where rescue teams can bring infinite energy in a backpack. Schools in the desert running computers and air conditioning without any infrastructure at all. But it goes deeper than that. Maxwell believes that energy independence means true freedom. When you don't depend on anyone for power, you can't be controlled. You can't be shut off. You can't be priced out. You become truly independent in a way humanity has never experienced before. During the demonstration, something else happened that nobody expected. The sphere started adjusting its output automatically. When someone brought a phone near it, it charged slowly and safely. When they connected medical equipment, it ramped up instantly. It was like the device could sense what was needed and provide exactly that. No waste, no excess. Perfect efficiency that adapts in real time. One engineer who examined it said the internal temperature never changed. Doesn't matter if it's powering a light bulb or a building, the sphere stays exactly the same temperature. No heat buildup. No cooling needed. No moving parts to break down. It just exists in a state of perfect balance, creating energy from the fabric of space itself. The skeptics, and there are many, say this breaks fundamental laws of physics. They say energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. They're right, according to everything we've been taught. But Maxwell argues we've been looking at it wrong. He says the energy isn't being created. It's already there, all around us, in every atom of air, every speck of dust, every empty space between the stars. His device just opens a door to let it flow through. It's like we've been dying of thirst while floating in an ocean, not knowing the water was drinkable all along. The scientific community is split right down the middle. Half are calling for immediate testing and verification. The other half are already trying to replicate what they saw. Online forums are exploding with amateur scientists claiming they're seeing strange results from their own experiments. Something is definitely happening, even if we don't fully understand what yet. Maxwell himself seems remarkably calm about all of this. When asked if he's worried about suppression or interference, he smiled and said something profound. He said, "Truth is like water. You can try to contain it, but eventually it finds a way through." He's already released partial blueprints online. Not enough to build a full device, but enough to prove the principles work. Thousands of engineers worldwide are studying them right now, adding their own insights, pushing the boundaries further. He's also planning something unprecedented. a live global demonstration where he'll power an entire off-grid facility using nothing but the core. No tricks, no hidden cables, just pure, wireless, endless energy for the whole world to see. If he pulls it off, it'll be the shot heard around the world. The moment, everything changes. But let me paint you a picture of what this really means for your daily life. Imagine never paying an electric bill again. Your refrigerator, your computer, your entire house running forever on a device the size of a basketball that costs less than a used car. Imagine electric vehicles that never need charging stations because they carry their own infinite power source. Imagine flying to Mars without worrying about fuel because the ship powers itself from the quantum field of space. This isn't just about convenience, it's about possibilities we haven't even dreamed of yet. Cities floating in the ocean, powered indefinitely. Underground colonies that don't need surface connections. Machines that can run for centuries without maintenance, exploring the deepest oceans and the furthest planets. The entire human relationship with energy would fundamentally change. Maxwell talks about this transformation with an almost spiritual reverence. He doesn't see the core as just a machine. He sees it as humanity's next evolutionary step. Just like fire let us survive the night and electricity let us build the modern world, infinite energy could let us become something we can't even imagine yet. A species unbound by scarcity, free to pursue knowledge, art, and exploration without the constant struggle for resources. The resistance to this idea is already forming. Some governments are calling for immediate regulation. Energy companies are funding studies to debunk the technology. There are even rumors of attempts to buy and bury the patents, though Maxwell cleverly refuses to patent anything, keeping it all open source. He says information wants to be free, and fighting that is like trying to hold back the tide. What strikes me most about Maxwell's approach is his focus on education over production. Instead of building a factory to mass-produce these devices, he's teaching others how to build them. He's creating a movement, not a product. Every person who learns this technology becomes a node in an unstoppable network of innovation. You can't suppress thousands of independent inventors all creating their own versions. The philosophical implications are staggering, too. If energy is infinite and free, what happens to economics as we know it? What happens to the concept of scarcity that underlies every market system? What happens when the basic assumption that resources are limited gets proven wrong? Some economists are already warning about potential chaos. Others are predicting a golden age of abundance unlike anything in human history. Maxwell addresses these concerns with surprising wisdom. He says humanity has always adapted to new realities. When agriculture was invented, hunter-gatherers predicted disaster. When machines arrived, craftsmen thought the world would end. Each time, we found new ways to create meaning and value. This will be no different, just bigger. The safety question is crucial too. Maxwell insists the quantum field his device taps into is completely harmless. No radiation, no electromagnetic interference, no biological effects. He claims it's safer than sunlight because it doesn't even exist in our normal space until the device brings it through. Still, he's conducting extensive testing, working with health organizations to ensure long-term exposure is truly safe. Some of the most moving moments from the demonstration came from African engineers and students who were present. One young woman from Kenya said she grew up studying by candlelight because her village had no power. She said, watching the core work felt like watching her entire continent's future change in an instant. Another engineer from South Africa said this could be Africa's gift to the world. Proof that innovation doesn't only come from wealthy nations. That's a powerful narrative Maxwell is crafting. Africa, the continent that's been exploited for its resources for centuries, becoming the birthplace of technology that makes resource exploitation obsolete. It's poetic justice on a global scale. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of all this is what Maxwell isn't saying. When pressed about how he made this breakthrough, he becomes quiet. He mentions years of meditation, of listening to patterns others ignore, of seeing connections that shouldn't exist. He talks about the universe having a frequency, a rhythm that most of us are too busy to hear. It sounds mystical, but then again, so did quantum physics when it was first discovered. There's something deeper happening here than just a technological breakthrough. It's a shift in how we understand reality itself. The idea that empty space contains infinite energy challenges our basic assumptions about existence. It suggests the universe is far more abundant than we ever imagined, that scarcity might be an illusion we've imposed on ourselves. As I'm sharing this with you, laboratories around the world are racing to verify or debunk Maxwell's claims. Some are reporting anomalies in their experiments, energy appearing where it shouldn't. Others claim it's all measurement error or misunderstanding. The debate is fierce and growing fiercer by the day. But here's what I find most compelling. Even if Maxwell's specific device doesn't work exactly as claimed, he's already succeeded in something crucial. He's gotten the entire world talking about infinite energy. He's inspired thousands of inventors to push boundaries. He's shown that innovation can still come from unexpected places. And he's proven that one person with a radical idea can shake the foundations of everything we take for granted. The next few months will be critical. If Maxwell's live demonstration succeeds, if he really can power a facility with nothing but his sphere, it'll trigger a cascade of change that nobody can stop. Governments will have to adapt, corporations will have to evolve, and every single one of us will have to reconsider what's possible. So, where does this leave us? Right on the edge of either the greatest breakthrough in human history or the most elaborate misunderstanding of physics ever witnessed. Either way, we're living through a moment that people will talk about for generations. The moment when someone stood up and said energy could be free, and the world had to decide whether to believe it. Maxwell's closing words at the demonstration still echo in my mind. He said we've been prisoners of scarcity for so long that we've forgotten abundance is our natural state. He said the universe doesn't charge us for sunlight, for air, for gravity. Why should energy be any different? And then he said something that gave everyone goosebumps. He said the future isn't coming. It's already here. We just have to be brave enough to switch it on. As you process everything I've just shared, ask yourself this. What would you do in a world where energy costs nothing? How would your life change? What dreams would suddenly become possible? Because whether Maxwell's core works or not, those are questions we should all be asking. The future belongs to those who dare to imagine it differently. And maybe, just maybe, that future is humming quietly in a small blue sphere, waiting for the world to be ready. The revolution won't be televised. It'll be powered wirelessly, infinitely, and it might have already begun. So I'll leave you with this thought. Every great leap forward started with someone saying, "That's impossible." Flight was impossible. Space travel was impossible. The internet was impossible. Until suddenly, they weren't. Maybe infinite energy is about to join that list. And if it does, remember you heard about it here, at the moment when impossible started becoming inevitable. If this absolutely blew your mind like it did mine, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because revolutions don't start with technology. They start with people talking, thinking, and daring to believe that tomorrow could be fundamentally different from today. The power isn't just in the sphere. It's in us, waiting to be awakened.